Okay.
But I'm not going to do that because I'm crazy enough. Just want to give you some modest
Is there I can shift this? Is this turns?
I want to thank everybody who's taken the
Does it
time
move?
out
Does it twist?
anything and everything that you're doing.
No, I just wanted to just
To be with us this evening, and those of you who have been with us all day, as we were here early in the day, we supremely appreciate that.
I was gonna just turn it so.
This night, very quickly, is a reward ceremony for our elders, our Newark elders who were at Gary, who participated in that whole call for a united front. That's how we were trying to mobilize newly found access to this one.
I just want to focus on him, but you want to do it a little bit?
Yeah, just focus on him.
Because this is as high as I can go.
Dangerous time.
Because if I go any tighter, it will cut his head off. Okay. So we want to just keep it widescreen the whole time.
And we need to raise some hell and make sure we get it back where we need to have it. So the call for a united front today is as important as it was then. We wanted to acknowledge our elders who understood that then and who are still here, who help us understand that today. So just as a preliminary gesture of acknowledgement, let's give our awarding elders a round. This will happen, this Parliament night will happen in 3 parts. First, we're going to feed you. This is an audience that feels stage, clearly.
Is it too dark?
Because we're on the run.
I mean, do you want it the lights back? You good?
I'm good.
I wasn't sure. I think I want to dim it a little bit to kind of,
we can get
set
it good.
there you go.
Remember, we hear you on this thing.
One of our partners is a young man I'm very proud of. We should all be very proud of. He's the son of this town and the son of struggle. Kai Campbell, who's in charge of the yard. Not only is he our caterer for the evening, but he actually, out of recognition for the gravity of what we're trying to do here, donated, which we now partake. You know what I'm saying? So, we've got all of our partners have been just really important. Here, good to see Ricardo Salazar. I'm trying to keep us from being much hard, but probably really out, right? From Newark Happening, right? And as we moved and been moving, Newark Happening has been with us every step of the way. Our step and repeat, that's what Carlos designed. Yeah. Newark Happening. We're going to do this in 3 parts. We're going to feed you first, as I said earlier, right? We're going to give the awardees their awards, and then we're going to shift from this space into the auditorium, where you will be blessed with 2 presentations that are going to come to you another way, right? I don't know if you know it or not, but today is not just the birthday of AMIRI Baraka. This is the birthday of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? And the national spokesman for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Baraka, is going to send his own message after we honor him. He's not just doing that because we give him props and love. He's doing that because in 1972, he was there in Gary with them. Understand? Millionaire Lawrence didn't come out of the sky. He understood that call for unity and has made some calls of his own that we're building on. Right? And finally, our beloved, we're blessed to have in this town an education mayor. We're blessed to have in this town a leader with vision. And it's the shared vision of the mayor of the city of Newark and the mayor of the city of Jackson, Mississippi, and why we have been trying to figure out how to reconvene or come as close to reconvening as we can, a contemporary, immediate call for a united front as we get ready for this next battle over the ballot in these next 2 election phases that are going to be critically important for the very real immediate future of this country and what that means for our kids and our grandkids. We're not going backwards. We're not standing on these walk forward in spite of those who do not understand that this thing that we live in, this place that we live in, is supposed to be for some of everybody. So, let me get off this mic because again I'll start going buck wild and that's what I can do. Right? That's why I don't take mics off of things because I start, that young man understands how we go with the microphone in our hand. Right? So I'm going to introduce to you a young man I'm very proud of. And we should all be very proud of him. Most of us who know him are. He's a student minister. I don't know, Minister Louis Farrakhan, and our leader here at Milestone 25. He's been a stellar beacon of dignity and light, as you're supposed to be when you walk in that kind of walk in the streets, in the tradition of incredible messengers. Right? Right? He's going to open us with prayer to bless our food and to bless this night. I want you to give a round of applause and welcome Minister Abdul Haq.
Baraka for the Muhammad Mosque of Islam, number 25, which is located here in the city of Newark, New Jersey. And as a student minister of him, he teaches us that it is a customary standard among all men and women of faith to begin all things officially and respectfully in the name of God. So we're going to say prayer and we're going to assume a position that is most comfortable to you, all right? We pray. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Oh Allah, we beseech your help and we ask for your mercy. For we believe in you and trust in you for all that we need. We are helpless in your cause, but thine apostle, please grant to us success. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Now, before I bring up our moderator and correct an error that I made, two errors. One that I made earlier and one that I made just now. Now, I brought y'all here tonight for a night for our special elders and did not ask the elders for permission to speak. Forgive me, dear elders. Help me, I correct that. Do I have permission to proceed? I got to take my loss. Second correction that I want to make. We did a modest libation statement this morning. I lifted up 5 ancestors of the Gary convention in that particular moment. Lift it up, and I'm going to lift them up again. And then add somebody who I didn't lift up, right? And that's the late great man, Richard Hatcher, who hosted the Gary convention back in '72. So I'm going to lift up 7 ancestors. I'm going to lift up 2 incredible black women who were regally treated as they should have been at the Gary convention, right? And in the absence of their fallen hero husbands, made important institutional creational marks that we all appreciate. I'm talking about, I'm sure you've heard the name Coretta Scott King, and even some of the young ones have heard Coretta Scott King, right? And if you haven't, she is the queen and wife and partner of the late great Dr. Martin Luther King. And after we lost Dr. King, not only did she get in front of a campaign to bring Dr. King a national holiday, but she also created what is now the Martin Luther King Center for Social Change in Atlanta, Georgia, and it is a beachhead for teaching the history of the civil rights movement from the point of view of Martin Luther King's teachings and the organizational line of the Southern Christian leadership, led by their youngest daughter, the very grateful Bernice King, Reverend Bernice King. So when I say, let's give Dr. King and Ashe, y'all all right? Dr. King, Ashe. I'm doing that way because I ain't got my board, because I have board all over the floor where it's supposed to do. It's the third one. Betty Bahia Shabazz. Yeah. Right? Is that Betty? Yes. Betty Bahia Shabazz. It's a full name. Queen between the partner of none other than Malcolm X, and after Malcolm fell. And he fell right before her eyes and the eyes of her children to deal with that, right? We had a fight in New York City, and Dr. J will definitely remember this, with our first black mayor in New York, right? Once upon a time, the very space that was the Audubon Ballroom, that was the organizational head and place of gathering for the organization of Afro-American Unity, Mayor Dinkins was going to sell that to Columbia University for $1. He said, Brother Mayor, like him, we need to, that should be a historical landmark, right? And we need to do whatever is necessary to make that happen. And we had protests and pitched battles with the police, and finally got to that community board, as we do in New York. And that community board embraced that, and that building that was going to be given to Columbia for $1. Columbia still has the principal owner of the building, but the building that was the Audubon Ballroom, that is now the Malcolm X and Dr. Ben Shabazz Educational Center. The house that Betty built. Betty Bahia Shabazz. Let's give her an Ashe. He was a young man here representing Until Freedom, former banker and a profound player in the land of hip-hop by the name of my son. Y'all heard my son one day, right? Young man was killing it in our hip-hop panel, right? A justice-impacted young man, right? Who came from that space and wound up at the feet of somebody who was at Gary, who brought artists into the civil rights movement at the behest of Martin Luther King. Old heads, y'all know Harry Belafonte, right? Who lived well into his 90s and only a few minutes ago left us, right? But Mr. Belafonte, up until his last days, was training people like my son and his beloved daughter, Gina Belafonte, and several organizations of young people doing empowering and important things because of who he is and who he was, right there front and center. Key to bringing Betty and Coretta there. Belafonte, let's give him an Ashe. Sandersville, Georgia. I told everybody, I reminded everybody that I'm from Stone Mountain, Georgia, by my grandfather. Clan country where our grandfather had to shoot his way out of the South. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Nearby was Sandersville, Georgia. Well, man, no bigger than this showed us how to wake up and clean up and stand up like few others have ever done. Had a young soldier that came out of prison right after he came out of prison, named Malcolm, right? Didn't understand why his mouth was half empty, getting all this teaching and all that blessing. That man trained Malcolm and cut him loose. Malcolm went over the highways and byways of this country with an old blue Oldsmobile and built that nation. That teacher was none other than the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, born on this day, represented at the Gary Convention by his national spokesman, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let's give the Honorable Elijah Muhammad We're here because of Mayor Baraka trying to put this in the door. But in 1972, we were in Gary, Indiana. They were in Gary, Indiana. I was a knucklehead in the street trying to figure out how to go to prison. Right? They were in Gary, Indiana, at the behest of a brave black man who was not willing to be confined by the directives of the Democratic Party by the name of Richard Nixon. A black man who was proud to represent the red, the black, and the green. The black man was proud to be the host, a space where our people needed to come together and make something real out of our new access to that thing called the ballot. So for Richard Hatcher, an unsung voice in the history of our movement, right, and the host of Gary 72, Let's give Richard Hatcher a shame. Shame. And today, of course, is the birthday of the Imam. Y'all don't know what that means. That means leader in Swahili, one of the languages that they stripped off our tongues. They whipped the flesh off our backs and out of our mouths. That's what they did. But we're going to take those tongues back, take our time back, and take our destiny back, right? And on the shoulders of someone who had a vision, brought us together in Newark first to take City Hall away from racist gangsters. We had that here in Newark too, in some of our lifetime, right? We had that here. Somebody had to challenge that. The man that challenged that, picking up the tools of the battle of the bullet, picking up Malcolm's line of cultural revolution. It's none other than the Imam, AMIRI Baraka. The man who had the vision to convene Gary in 72. We stand on AMIRI's shoulders, grateful for his son, grateful for his queen, who was supposed to be here. We have an award for Amina, but she could not be here this evening. But for the Imam, let's give the Imam AMIRI Baraka and Ashe. Shame. Let us bring actually, we should just come in. We're going to eat. After we eat, Keisha will walk us through the award ceremony. So I guess we're ready here. We're ready to go ahead and eat. Right? Let's start with our awardees table. Y'all go ahead and eat. The minister already does it. And I can get over it's cocky. After that table, and just everybody just gradually get your food, sit down, settle down, and we'll get into our awards. Right? Give yourselves a round of applause. Let's do it.
Okay.
Move you into this next session. Please give a warm welcome to our Director of the Office of
No, I need
Violence
that.
Prevention and
So
Trauma
I kept it running.
Recovery.
Yes, I kept it
Peace and black power, everyone. Power to the people. All power to the people. All right, so we are here tonight, and it is an honor to be here to give honor to our esteemed elders who've been in this great fight for a very long time, and whose shoulders we stand on, and we have to always make sure that we pay homage, and that we never forget our elders and our folks that's been on these front lines, sidelines, behind the wall, and every other space. And so, I am Keisha Yuri, Director for the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery. But before I was the Director for the Office of Violence Prevention, I was the Chair for the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition. The work that has been laid for the last 15, 20 years around violence prevention and violence intervention. But beyond that, as I read up on the 72, the Gary, Indiana, right, puts us at a place that we've been in this fight for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And so it's not a new fight, right? And so it has ultimately become a fight that's been passed on. And so when I was reading up on it, we talked about Gary, Indiana, and it was a place of when we was in a political crisis where we needed to get together and we needed to make an agenda for a black agenda, and not work in silos, as we know that happens all the time, but to come together to be able to create a black agenda. And that agenda was around crime and unemployment and education and mass incarceration and drugs, our economic, cultural, and spiritual depression and resurrection that needed to happen. And as today we talked about anti-blackness and white supremacy and structural racism, right? All of those things that are not new to our struggle. And so the people that are here to my right are not people who are new to the struggle, who took on this fight, and those of us that sit at the helm have reaped the benefits of the work that they've done. And so we were talking earlier, and I just had a conversation with Principal Kafele around us having power and how we seize power, and ultimately not letting the legacy of these people die. And so as we are in this fight for the city of Newark and this violence prevention work, I laid it out earlier on the panel and talking about how we come forward in terms of being able to be in the streets and fighting and having demands and all of those things, to now having some funding, to now being able to quote-unquote defund the police. And 5% of my budget for my Office of Violence Prevention comes from the police department. And so that is $11.5 million that we reallocated from the police department. And that is 11.5 million people that are not happy about taking money away from the police, if you will. And so that fight has been a fight not just with funding, but with real estate. And so my office is in the first precinct over on 17th Avenue, which was a former police precinct where the 67 rebellion sparked out of. A place of police brutality, a place of hurt and harm, a place where people were being brutalized, is now transformed into a space where people can get help. A place where people can come and see a social worker, an outreach worker, a case manager, right? Transforming how we do this work. And when you seize power, you can transform those spaces. You get to make decisions. And so the mayor thought it not robbery to clear the path for some of us to be able to walk through and say, we're going to put money into this. We're going to take some spaces and some buildings. And so some of these organizations that we've been working with have been able to get buildings that they never would have been able to get before, and giving it to them at a price of $2.50 per square foot, right? And all you have to do is be able to rehab the space, right? And so being able to get buildings, get funding. And so I just put $12 million into 30 community-based organizations. investment. This fight is about power. This fight is about transforming a city and being able to be a national model for other cities around decreasing crime and violence. We cut our numbers in half. Since Mayor Baraka's been in office, we had over 100 homicides. Now we today are at 40, right? And so that's us being able to work together. We brought organizations together, so now organizations are working together. We have one hood where we bring it together, all the Bloods, the Crips, the neighborhoods that's been fighting for years are now meeting every week in a space trying to figure out how to mediate and stop crime and violence in our city. We are now doing things that we've never been able to do before. And so that's because of what happened at 72 table, right? The Gary, Indiana table, to create a black agenda. Some of us got the message. Some of us understood the assignment. Some of us understand what we need to do in order for the next generation to be able to be better. And so tonight, this is why we're here, and I just wanted to lay a little bit of groundwork in terms of the work that's been happening so that it doesn't seem like nothing is happening. But we are seizing power. We are investing back into the community, and we are having some victories. And so we're going to call up Brother Principal Kafele to come up first to be able to present this award to our good brother, Leonard Jeffries, who's been doing this work forever. And so we're going to allow Principal Kafele to present him with his award. And I'm sure he's going to say all the amazing work that this guy does, because he just won't be still. Him and his wife, who's been laying good scholarship in our community, because we need instruction in order to do this work. So Principal Kafele, please come.
Good evening, everybody. You know, before I get to Dr. Jeffries, I didn't know I was going to be here tonight. I was here for the program, and then we went out to eat. Something led me to say to my wife, let's go back. Because we all need, I need to take it down, I really do. So I said, let's go back. So then for Diane to come to me and say, I want you to present the award to Dr. Jeffries. I said, okay, this is bigger than me just coming here tonight. This is God. Let me tell you why, Dr. Jeffries. When I was deaf, dumb, and blind, my wife and I would go to African Echoes every Sunday, bar none. And I was literally educated on you and others. I can quote a lot of things you said over the years, but the one that always stands out for me is when you always said, we need a systems analysis. That's right. That's your word. A systems analysis. You know, Dr. Jeffries, there's really nothing I need to say, but I'm up here with this microphone, so I will say it. This is a man, a brother, a father, that has told the African story when folks knew nothing about it. All over the world, telling the African story, enlightening more folks than you will ever know, that you have touched through your lectures, through everything, just all the vehicles that you had in order to reach us. You know, over the years, I literally have been begging you to take all of that information and to put it into a book. I literally begged you for that, and there are folks in this room that we've had that conversation about you. And it's not too late. It's not too late, right? It may happen. Maybe somehow, some way, we can compile all your speeches and put them into one volume so that your written legacy is here forever, right? But it must be done. I guess I'm the one that's saying it, so maybe I need to spearhead that.
Right.
But in addition, y'all, let me just say this. Yeah. Let me just say this to everybody. For those of you who were at the panel today, and I talked about the things we did at Sojourner Truth Middle School in terms of converting it into an African-centered school. Dr. Jeffries, as I probably mentioned, was at our school all the time. But I remember the administration was afraid of him. So they didn't want, they said, we're gonna let you bring him, because I was a little bit of a rabble rouser back then. So they said, we're going to let you bring him to the school, but we don't want that placed on the board agenda. So it never made the board agenda. He was paid under the table, but he came and enlightened my students and enlightened my staff about things that they didn't know as it related to who they are. And it was really amazing to watch 6th, 7th, and 8th graders sit in an auditorium the way you're sitting right now in East Orange, just sitting there quietly and attentively absorbing the information. And I know definitively that there's a lot of those young people who are successful today because of those times that we had. So, to Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and let me just read the award to you, Doctor. The Warrior Scholar Lifetime Award. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, presented by Raz J. Baraka, Mayor, City of Newark, New Jersey, and Unity Without Uniformity. October 7, 2023. I want to present this award to this great elder, great scholar, great historian, legend of our time, living legend, Dr. Leonard Jeffries.
Oh, he's in the way. Okay.
Hotep family,
Hotep.
it's an extraordinary day when we can come together as family and really mean it. Newark has provided a model of how we can come out of difficult circumstances and triumph. So Newark's model needs to be studied, mastered. Each of us has something important to say. Now, I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, born on Central Avenue, Vernon Children's Hospital. So I claim this church. I'm going to be coming more and more to see what you're all doing with it. And I have my whip in hand, and my hand, just to snap it to remind you of what the struggle is all about. But you can't do anything by yourself. And if you're an African man and you're looking for something serious, you better find an African woman to latch on to and hang on to. Well, this one I have next to me has been a long journey, but she's carried her weight. She went to Africa before any of us. She went to Nigeria, a village in the eastern region of Nigeria. I was studying in Europe at that time, but when I came back, I went to see the people that had gone to Nigeria, and there she was, beaming like a light. She was born and raised in Harlem. Everybody needs to know what that is. That's a phenomenon. And in fact, we need to get to Harlem as much as we can. So we're going to try to put some of our books and other items at one of the places in Harlem that might make some sense. Harlem Hospital, or across the street at the Schomburg Center. If not at the Schomburg Center or Harlem Hospital, Reverend Colonel Butts had the biggest church in Harlem, Abyssinian Baptist Church. So we would put some of the work in Abyssinian. Reverend Butts was one of my teachers on the city college staff. And in fact, and his wife-to-be, Pat, was one of our students. But the fantastic thing was to be in a church started by Adam Clayton Powell, the father, sustained by Adam Clayton Powell Jr., an extraordinary legislator as well as a preacher. He had 67 major pieces of legislation passed through the Congress of the United States. So we have to know why we pay our respects to these brothers and sisters. So you can't go anything or anywhere unless you got a partner. Now these days it may not be a female partner, but anyway it's a partner, you know, that you can work with. And you have to think about seriousness. When Larry Baraka left the depot in New York, in the village, he was able to come across the river, come up the hill, and create Spirit House. Spirit House. Left and shook all that stuff in New York, and came home and built a beacon of light right there around Springfield Avenue. So we have to come together as a family, proud, but serious, with an agenda. An agenda for the ages, not the Asians, but the ages. Don't confuse it. Asians are going to take care of Asians. So don't worry about that. But we need an agenda for the Asians that involves not only our living, but those who have passed on. Not only our living and those who have passed on, but those yet to be born. We got to get busy. So without further ado, I'll cut my little message short and allow for my partner for life. Whether she likes it or not, that's what it is all about. And let us say a few words. Ross and Jeffries.
Our lives have been super extraordinary. And it's been so extraordinary because we have been under the tutelage of people who were ambassadors, great mentors of our age and time. It was a marriage that had to do with a working relationship, and they taught us to give. And so therefore, when we went to Africa, we went not as ourselves, but as people giving and sharing. Way before 9/11, we were up in the little villages all in Africa. What were we doing? Trunks we were bringing with encyclopedias for the people. We were bringing James Small's penicillin for the hospitals. So we grew into Africa. Thus, this award with this installment on it was the installment that the Ashanti people installed both of us in 2 different places in Ghana. And it was because we were giving and sharing. Leonard Jeffries began his life in Newark. His first job, his mother got for him to get him out of the house and get working, and it was the Job Corps. His first job was finding young men and teaching them how to go and get a proper job to earn money for the families. And with that instinct there, and my instinct from Harlem, which was a block growing up from Temple number 7, so that the Baptist, my mother was a part of my growing up, the Holy Ghost Spirit of God and the wave and the movement of God is what keeps us going. So we can talk about education and degrees, We can talk about the high school and the wonderful beauty of the high school, but the big thing is to be in the wave of God's program. We understood that also because it was Elijah Muhammad who hired a plane to take some of the potential leaders and some of the leaders from New York to Chicago to try to get us into the Nation of Islam. Why? Because the program of the Nation of Islam coincided with the program of others that were interested in giving and sharing. And my husband said she'll say a few words, and so once I start talking about the benevolence, the Most High, the Merciful, then I'm inclined to want to go on and on. But we can say that we're only together because of the grace of God, and not our own will at all time, but the grace of God must be first in our lives. Thank you, Lord.
So, brothers and sisters, if you think that Dr. J has been straightening up and flying right, it's because you've got a powerful partner for life. And you better be straight, and you better be right, and you better be able to know how to fix it up when necessary. Our experience is an extraordinary experience. Together, it would be impossible to describe it. It would be impossible to film it. It would be impossible to write it up. Because we've had a chance to meet the Nkrumahs of the world, the Sekou of the world. We've had a chance to meet the Shekanta Diops of the world, not just the Dr. Benz and the Dr. Clarks and the rest. But we will get that story out. So it means a lot to Newark, because Newark is the foundation of it. And what we have been able to do, Newark needs to replicate in touching our Africanness. Frederick Douglass said it best. If there is no progress, if there is no struggle, there is no progress.
This is sound.
Who want the crowd without the sacrifice that has to be made. And so we want to understand that you have to struggle. You have to be a part of a family, and you're on a victorious path. Thank you very much. By putting them to your spiritual process. And if they fit the mold, you got a way to go together. Thank you. Madasi. Many thanks.
We thank you so much, Dr. J, Dr. Roslyn, and Dr. Leonard. Let's give them a strong round of applause. For their continued sacrifice, like he just talked about, for their continued struggle, but always giving. And so we know that there's so many of us that are in the work that are giving, but would not be able to do what he and his wife have done because it's tough. How many years y'all been together, Dr. J and Mary? All right, so over 50 years of marriage, right? It's something that many of us are striving for and within you. And so I'm going to call Dr. Leah Owens the mic right now. And so Leah is going to present our good brother Junius Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Great evening, absolutely. It was my pleasure to serve earlier on a panel with Mr. Jonathan Austin, facilitating, moderating on the education panel, and it is even greater pleasure for me to pass on and put forward this flower, one of many that Dr. Junius Williams has received and will continue to receive. I've always called him Mr. Williams. I'm always going to call him Mr. Williams. He is an educator, a great educator. When I first started to attend the Avid Leadership Institute classes on Saturdays, I remember the very first one, and I talked a little bit about this on the panel, and he was presenting, we were at Paul Robeson Campus Center, and he was presenting on Renaissance 2010, a so-called school reform plan for Chicago. And really, it was a school deform plan, and it was really about real estate and gentrification, and not about actually improving the educational outcomes of the children enrolled in that school district. And I literally had an aha moment sitting there listening to him and watching his presentation, because it all made sense to me. And I talk about how I'm not from Newark, but I'm of Newark, and being a teacher at Baraka High School, I knew something wasn't right with what was going on in the school system, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't have the language for it. I just knew that my students deserved better. And so when I started to attend those classes, I became a faithful student of Mr. Williams, and I became a better educator because of him. And I watched everything that he was doing, and I appreciated so much how he was a dynamic leader. He wasn't just, quote unquote, a lawyer, but like I said, he was an educator. He also knew the importance of helping to organize youth and teach them skills so that they could uplift their own voices, right? This is what an educator does. They create spaces for others to be able to develop into themselves and to flourish. So all of my stumbles, all of the things that I haven't gotten right along the way are certainly on me, but my greatness, I know and recognize now, forever, always. I stand on the shoulders of Mr. Williams. I stand on the shoulders of Mr. Willie Rowe. I stand on the shoulders of Mrs. Wilhelmina Holder, all longtime students of the Avid Leadership Institute, and who I've met, developed relationships with, and came to love, and they came to love and embrace me as well. So I'll just leave this with this last story. We were at some kind of invitee-only type of meeting about who the next superintendent would be, I believe. That was the topic of the meeting. And we were given these handouts and told by these school deformers that, we could look at the handouts in this small group meeting, but we'd have to return them. And at the end of the meeting, Mr. Williams got up and he had the presentation in his hand. He was, moving to leave the room. And one of these young deformers came up and, respectfully said, we're gonna need that handout back. And so Mr. Williams just gave him this look, like, boy, if you don't sit down, I'm not giving you anything. I've earned this, and I just watched him off. Like, I cannot wait until I gain those years. I won't say get that old. Gain those years, gain that wisdom to be able to stand so strongly in my place and know that I have the power, right? I have the power, not you. So I just appreciate and respect and love you so much. So it's my honor to present you with this award. The Lifetime Movement Pioneer Award.
I do love Leah Owens and all of those people that she named and some more coming from the Abbott Leadership Institute. We did that for about 18 years. And then it's still going. And from that came the Youth Media Symposium, which the Young People's Organization she was talking about, or YMS. And those young people are an example of what you can do if you invest some time in helping them to discover who they are. Parents, yes, I love the Abbott Leadership Institute. We had, I think everybody who was at one point an educational leader in the city of Newark came through the Abbott Leadership classes, whether we agreed or not. When they left, they still got the benefit of coming in and enjoying talking to one another. And we ate. We always had good food. That's because of Wilhelmina Holder. Wilhelmina Holder, when we first got started, I said, Wilhelmina, we don't have time to be eating all the time. I mean, we got to get, no, Junius, you got to serve them some food. She was right. I was wrong. Before we had classes, there was at least a half hour, 45 minutes of fellowship around the food. And that was so African. That was so good. And let me just stop talking about that for a minute, because we are talking about Gary. But one of the things I notice about this room is that there are people here who still dare to be considered African. But you had African American, that's okay. African, Latino, okay, that's fine. But the African seems to have gone away from the discourse. I asked my son about that. My sons and my daughters, I have two sets of children, two daughters, two sons. And two things I start out with both sets. I said, number one, you are African, and number two, you come from the blues. So there's no doubt in their mind who they are. So when they go to school, and when I went to school, somebody call you an African, that's like talking about your mama. You want to fight. So when that happened, when they went to school, yeah, you're right. I may not know the country that I'm from, but I know that African root. Same thing with the blues. They love today's modern music, hip hop, club, etc. But they also know the blues. Where all that came from. Where did it come from? From those ships that came over and deposited that seed that blossomed into something called the blues. And from the blues, we have gospel, we have jazz, we have hip hop, we have club, we have all of those elements beating like the beat of our heart. So when those of us who went to Gary, all of us understood that beat. You could put your hand on your heart and feel the ta-dum, ta-dum, ta-dum. But you also knew where that beat started and where that beat continues, even today as we speak. Now I talk about the music as often as I can. Right now, I didn't know I was supposed to be here tonight until yesterday, because my good friend over here told me, well, I want you to be available to celebrate Baraka's birthday. I thought I was supposed to be here this afternoon or this morning and on the panel. But then I looked at the agenda and I didn't see my name on the panel. I said, well, I guess he got somebody else. Didn't make me feel bad, because I am doing a film on the history of black music in Newark. African music. Jazz. Rhythm and blues. Gospel. And how that evolved into hip hop, club, and house. And so I was filming over at a church not too far from here, where we had young people and not so young people And I left my team over there filming the evidence of all of that which has happened. The music, the ta-doom, ta-doom, ta-doom. And I had one young man told me that gospel is the same as house. And he ran it down, and it's because of that beat, that heartbeat that we continue to feel. So that's the reason I love the whole Gary experience, because we were all there together. Unity without uniformity. The unity didn't always work out, the uniformity certainly didn't work out, but that beat was still there, and we still carry it today. And I appreciate and love and respect AMIRI Baraka, because even though we didn't always get along, I was not, quote unquote, a cultural nationalist, as my friend Larry Hamm was. He's going to talk about it when he gets up here, so I'm taking a chance. But we knew we had to get things together to take over this city. That's where we had operational unity, because we had to get the job done. So I'm going to stop, and I'm just going to appreciate this award, because that's what it stands for. Cannot rest until it comes, and I take this as an indication that we have to move on, and I appreciate this crowd of witnesses that you have assembled here today, my brother. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
We thank you so much for all of your work. Is it Dr. Junius? Because I don't want to be disrespectful. Okay. All right. And so all of his work in terms of the educational lane that he's laid, and now, who's leading that work now? Is it Kalina Barrowman? Someone else? Okay. And so he handed it and put it into good hands in terms of being able to pass the baton, right, to a younger generation, right? And so making sure that the work continues. And so we thank you for your work. We thank you for your contribution. When I inherited the building over on 17th Avenue, Brother Junius Williams was a part of that and starting to make a museum. He's supposed to make a community museum to be able to document the history of policing and public safety in the city of Newark. And so we want to continue to do that work. And so again, his hands are in a lot of pots, and so your contribution is definitely appreciated by me as well. At this time, we want to bring Ingrid to present the award for our good brother, Larry Hamm. And all of the top members who are present are going to present this award together. Right.
There's so much to talk about when it comes to Lawrence Hamm, who's the chairman of the People's Organization for Progress. But I start off saying that Lawrence, Larry, known as Larry, loves black people. Okay, and he goes above and beyond in terms of doing what he has to do in order to promote and to make sure that we get justice. I don't know where he gets his energy from. All I can say is that the ancestors have a connection with him because he's 24/7. He never sleeps. He responds to anybody that calls and has a need. And he's humble. I've never met anybody as humble as our chairman, Larry Hamm. And he's always very helpful. He's there. He responds to all kinds of issues, especially lately with police brutality cases. And again, he's the kind of person, when I first ran into Larry Hamm, actually met Larry Hamm, was when he came to Seton Hall to support the movement when they were closing down the Africa, when they got rid of my boss.
and she fought against Seton Hall and won. It was one of the first times that somebody had actually stood up. And Seton Hall wanted to settle out of court. She took him to court and she won. And just seeing him out there with the group, and any time there was a need, he would bring, and we would be able to go down to Power. That's how I ended up joining Power. So I don't know. He's been on the forefront for 51 years plus. And again, I don't know where he gets his energy from. But he gets called, and he doesn't know how to say no to people. Okay, I mean, that's one of the things about, and we try to work with him and say, Chairman Hamm, sometimes you have to be able to say no to people. But I guess he just has that calling where he feels that he has to help at all costs. So again, Chairman Hamm, which is a sort of war, which means courage, valor, and heroism. And of course, we will reflect on all of everything.
Power to the people. First of all, let's give a hand to the organizing committee of this great event we have today. I've received a few plaques, but this is the first Afrocentric plaque that I've received with an African symbol on there. It's beautiful. Today's event was to commemorate the anniversary of the National Black Political Convention that was held in Gary, Indiana in 1972, and also to celebrate the birthday of one of our great heroes, not just from Newark, but internationally, AMIRI Baraka, who I met. We had our first face-to-face meeting in August of 1971. Maybe less than a mile from here, one of his headquarters, he has several headquarters in Newark. One was Hikalu Malimu, the Temple of the Teacher, which was on what we call then Belmont Avenue, which is now Irvin Turner Boulevard. The other one was Hikalu Umoja, House of Unity, which was 502 High Street, and the masses of the people called it 502. They didn't say Hikalu Umoja, they said 502, which I had to pass every day on my way to school because I went to Arts High School just one block up the street. And every day I would pass the Hikalu, and although I went to a school of music and art, it was only at the Hikalu could I hear the music of Pharaoh Sanders and Leon Thomas, Song for My Father. It was only at 502 that they would have a speaker outside and I would hear Love Supreme by John Coltrane. AMIRI Baraka and I met after I was appointed to the Board of Education at the age of 17 by Mayor Kenneth Gibson. And we met at Hikalu Umoja. And from that day, in 1971, we became very, very close friends. In fact, he gave me my African name, which I received after returning from the National Black Political Convention. I was transformed by Gary. I grew up here in Newark, right on the corner of Ridgewood and Avon. I lived number 5 Ridgewood next to the Ridgewood Bar. So I saw some of the worst conditions of our people. I had the privilege of going to Gary. And Gary exploded all the negative stereotypes that I had been taught about black people. Because at Gary, I saw 10,000 people come together, 3,000 elected delegates, 7,000 attendees, and they came together like a government to make a plan for our people. I was transformed by that. And when we returned home in March of 1972, I asked AMIRI Baraka to give me an African name. And he gave me the name of Adimu Chumba, which means exalted youth. And as a result of his influence, all of my children have legal African names. All my daughters. Naini Muradisha, Nia Adili, and Imani, my 3 daughters. Gary was a part of a process of bringing us together to build a consensus on what our goals would be, and then to leave and go fight for those goals, and then come back together. Convention movements have a long history among black people in this country. But in the contemporary phase, I guess I'll start here. 1967, there was a rebellion. Literally in the midst of the rebellion, a Black Power conference was held. I don't even know how that happened. Like, how could they get into how could Rap Brown, Ben Stokely Carmichael, Malaka, how did they even get into Newark when we were under military occupation? Like, really? Like they in Palestine. We were under military occupation. But there was a Black Power conference held downtown Newark in the summer, in July of 1967. The following year, at West Kent Junior High School, there was a Black Power convention. Out of that Black Power convention came the Black and Puerto Rican Convention of 1969. And out of that convention came the Community's Choice Team. Gibson for mayor, Dennis Westbrook for city council, Sharp James for South Board, and others. Those 3 got elected. And then in 1970, before Gary, there was the Congress of African People, which was a convention of black nationalists and activists. But it really was the precedent for Gary. It was held in Atlanta in 1970. It was out of the Congress of African People came the decision to have a national black political convention. AMIRI Baraka had a store next to his headquarters in Kala Umoja, 502 High Street. The name of that store was Nayumba Yaruja, which was House of Cooperative Economics, and they sold books and pamphlets. I saw that pamphlet in the store. I bought it. It was called Toward a Pan-African Party in the 20th Century. And the whole process for Gary was laid out in that pamphlet. And so we were elected in the August of 1971 when I met Baraka. The preparations for Gary were being made. And how did we get to Gary? We got elected up. There was an Essex County Black Political Convention held in 1971 at West Kenny Junior High School. I never forget, Congressman Fauntleroy was the guest speaker. Baraka brought him there. The best part of his speech was the song he sang at the end. I didn't know he could sing like that. He sang "To Dream the Impossible Dream." And even though that wasn't what you would call an Afrocentric song, it reflected the ethos, the spirit of the moment. And that was the first time I learned that black people in Washington, D.C. didn't have the right to vote for a congressperson who had a vote on the floor. Did you know that? We're still here today, 50 years later. Black people in Congress elect a person to Congress that cannot vote on the floor of the Congress. That was in 1972, Fauntleroy told us. And so from there we were elected to the state Black Political Convention, which was held in New Brunswick. And out of the state Black Political Convention, we were elected up to the Gary Convention in 1972. I was under a lot of attack during my tenure on the board. One of those attacks you remember, because I put forward a resolution that black students should be able to bring the red, black, and green flag to their classrooms as a teaching instrument. Oh my God, you thought the world had ended. Baraka was in Tanzania. He said he heard about it in Tanzania. You know, they said we wanted to replace the American, all that kind of foolishness. I remember when we went to Gary. The convention was at Westside High School in Gary. And whereas here, I was being attacked because I wanted to promote the red, black, and green flag. When I got off the plane, we got in the cab, we went down the main boulevard. Richard Hatcher, mayor of Gary, Indiana, had red, black, and green flags flying for 5 miles to Westside High School. You know I was in heaven at that time. So we stand right always in the vortex of history. Today, war has broken out between the Palestinian people who are struggling for their liberation and Israelis who have been oppressing them. And I say more power to the Palestinian people in their struggle for liberation. But listen to this. That particular issue was a touchstone at Gary. Everybody should get the Gary agenda, the National Black Political Convention agenda, and read it. Well, anyway, we were on the floor voting for resolutions. One little bitty resolution. The National Black Political Convention recognizes the self-determination of the Palestinian people. That resolution came to the floor. The Michigan delegation, who was led by a fellow, he wasn't an elected official yet. His name was Coleman Young. Coleman Young said, I will take the Michigan delegation out of this convention if you pass that resolution. But the majority of the convention, we were for that. I mean, yes, the whole black agenda was mostly about black people at home and abroad, but there was an internationalist perspective. We were in solidarity with the people of Palestine. And that convention passed. That resolution passed, and the Michigan delegation got up and left. And that was written about in the New York Times. And it almost caused the dissolution of the convention. But Baraka, with his magnificent oratorical skills and his political skills, was able to hold people together and finish out the convention. Another important event happened after Gary, and that was the African Liberation Day March in Washington, D.C. Gary drew 10,000 people, many of whom were elected. 72,000 people marched in Washington, D.C. on May 19th, Malcolm X's birthday, for liberation of people in Africa. And then finally, we must also remember after Gary, there was the sixth PAC, Dr. Jeffries, the sixth Pan-Africanist Congress that was held on the continent of Africa in 1974. So I say this to say that Gary was about getting political power. And that same struggle is going on today. We still have not achieved the goals that were set out at Gary, but we made some progress. The fact that we even here 50 years later, talking about Gary and trying to reflect on those lessons of Gary is a positive point. I know Ed has dedicated himself and others on the committees have dedicated themselves to making that convention happen. I hope that we will have it because we need it. Black people today, we are under attack. We're facing an existential crisis. I mean, they're not just taking our vote and taking our history. They're literally trying to exterminate us. That's right. Domestic, white, racist, supremacists, neo-Nazis, they're going into churches and killing our people. They're going to supermarkets and killing our people. It requires a commensurately strong response on our part. So thank you for this award. I'm really happy to receive this award. And I hope that we all can stay together and continue this fight. It's hard organizing. Organizing is not easy. But you know, if you're not used to political disagreement, then you shouldn't be in politics. Because politics is about disagreement. And it's about trying to resolve our differences so that we can work on those things that we have in common. But we have to continue to build this movement for liberation. Thank you very much, and power to you.
We thank you so much, Chairman, for your continued work, and Larry is always going to bring the history. He is always going to give us the facts, and he always has the story. So I certainly always appreciate knowing that someone holds the history. And so again, we thank you so much for your work. I'm so glad that AMIRI ultimately put the spark under you to be able to name you so that you can name the children, so that you can give us the layout for the work. And so one of the things for me, for Larry, and Larry has been on these front lines for 30 years fighting against police brutality, fighting against all of these fights, and I always wonder, how do he remember all these dates? Right? So he's a historian in his own right, and all of the people here are historians, and we need to make sure we don't let their legacy die, we don't let their work die, and that we need to record their work. And so at this time, we're going to go into the auditorium to be able to receive words from Minister Louis Farrakhan and Mayor Baraka. So we're going to make our way. We need someone to lead us into the space that we're going to go to.
You want to take a picture of the awardees with their awards, I ask you to do that. If you're walking that way, and if you can't go no further, you're going to make it right into the auditorium and get ready to receive words of Mr. Farrakhan and our Honorable Mayor Rascal Baraka.
Okay.
Awardees, come right here. Documentarians, get your bags, your phones.
So you can go that way, and I'll
And I'll put this down. Yeah. I can't stop it. It's good. Come on there. Here.